Hey everyone, this is Meredith of the Tune In with Meredith podcast, and I am so excited to welcome today my friend Joan Ifland, who is a PhD and MBA. We met, how many years ago was that?
It's been a long time.
Yeah, a while ago at a food addiction conference that she hosted. This is part of the series, so I'm going to give you her bio, but this is part of the series that's following up with my book, and which is Strategies for Letting Go of the Food and Weight Obsession. And today's topic is the science of food addiction and why it's the missing link in treating obesity. I think that was the original title, but I do want to make sure that we cover that because I think you and I are so zoned in on that. So I'll tell you a little bit more about her. Dr. Ifland has been creating breakthroughs in recovery from food addiction from 1999. Wow. With her first popular book to 2018 when her textbook, Processed Food Addiction, Foundations, Assessment, and Recovery was released by CRC Press. She founded the online addiction reset community, ARC, in 2016, www.foodaddictionreset.com, the Facebook group Food Addiction Education, and foodaddictionresources.com provide free support. Reset Week is the first online live video program for withdrawal. ARC Manager Training is a program training future addiction reset community leaders. Dr. Ifland is the lead author of the first scholarly description of processed food addiction and definition of addictive foods. She also earned her PhD in addictive nutrition at Union Institute and University, her MBA at Stanford Business School, and her BA in economics. What school? It's not listed.
Oberlin.
Oberlin.
My beloved Oberlin.
Oh, awesome. So yeah, she's just fascinating. I was so excited she's just knows a lot. And I think I just said there's a lot of people that don't understand food addiction and that it's possible. They get scared of the word addiction. And I just wanted you to kind of introduce people from that kind of science perspective. So, and she runs do you still run the Food Addiction Institute? Did I just read that?
No. We're totally into providing services.
Wow.
I thought I would go on and research, but the more I thought about it, there's plenty of research. There are thousands of studies out there illustrating food addiction because there's so much research on obesity, eating disorders, and drug addiction. Oh my gosh, I just thought that, people said, well, we need more research. That's not the issue right now. Yeah. We've got so much research. Every time I turn around to do a new topic, we do a workshop every week in our community, I can find 10 new studies on weight loss resistance or weight stigma or how to lose weight safely, how you catch weight gain from your social circles. These researchers are on the right topics and their research is not reaching the public.
And do you think that's because of food industry?
Totally. The food, between food and pharmaceutical, it's like big pharma, F-A-R-M-A, and then big pharma, P-H-A-R-M-A. They are like two ends of the spectrum now. And combined, the advertising dollars that they spend, like no media outlet that depends on advertising revenues can possibly afford to offend them. And the last thing those industries want to hear is the truth that they are creating addiction. Yeah. So no, this research doesn't reach the public. I just did a workshop. I really dove into the precise tactics that tobacco used to addict children to sugar. Starting in really 1963 and then picking up in 1983, 1985, when tobacco by then owned Hawaiian Punch, and then they bought in the mid 1980s Kraft, Nabisco, General Foods, and then later on they bought Dannon Yogurt. Well, all you have to do is say, why would people who specialize, why would the experts in addiction be moving into processed foods? I mean, there's only one answer. They saw an opportunity to create an addiction business. And oh my goodness, they sure did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that is so. I remember being, I don't know if we talked about this forever ago, but I worked at Health and Human Services in the Secretarial Prevention Initiatives in the Assistant Secretary for Public Health's office
Wow.
I know, for about 2 years. And I really kind of did a deep dive on what's going on with obesity. And it was all of these, companies, all of these guys coming in and saying, how can we make ourselves look good, pretty much. And
Well, how can we make another huge ton of money when your business expertise is addictions?
hmm,
Then what you know how to do is you know how to take a worthless product, something that imparts nothing good, and make people buy it because they're addicted to it,
mhm.
and then hide all the devastation of the substances. So that's tobacco, it's alcohol, it's vaping, it's cannabis. These are very destructive industries, but they're all,
Oh yeah.
gussied up and, oh, this is fun and this is cool. Oh yeah, vaping is so much better than smoking. It's really a health product. No,
No,
it's
it's not.
not. It's just as addictive and horrible and destructive as nicotine, except
Yeah.
maybe
Same.
more so.
Yeah, and like the marijuana industry, it's there's big money in it, and it's like yes, but you're not
There
thinking
is.
about the effects on the individual.
Yes. So so then is it okay to create memory loss and irritability and violent behavior? Well, according to you, it is. And, it's so bad out there, Meredith.
Mhm.
It really, we have created, I feel like it's a refuge, like a sanctuary for our brains,
Mhm.
online. It's our
Mhm.
online community, the addiction reset community. And that is what is needed.
I
So
love
these
that.
corporations, the way they work is they hide addictive substances in a seemingly innocent product. Like, oh, cigarettes were just for relaxing and flirting and being sexy and rebellious. So that's an innocent looking product. So they're stuffing extra nicotine in there. It's not innocent at all. They're creating an addiction, cravings. And then the vaping products having a ton of nicotine in them, and the alcohol products. I was just looking at a study of a product called Alco Pop,
What is
and
that?
it's a product for new drinkers. And somehow they got it regulated at the level of alcohol of beer, but it has the level of alcohol of hard liquor. So they hide the addictive substances. They don't show you. So you think, oh, I can use this and I won't become addicted at this level. But at that level, in fact, you are becoming addicted. It's the same thing they did with the opiates. They marketed to the doctors as non-addictive. So the doctors are great. Well, I can prescribe a lot of these because they're non-addictive. No, they were horrible. We now know they were horribly addictive. So it's kind of step one of the addiction process.
Mhm.
And then step two is to lure the purchaser, lure the potentially addicted person into buying the product often enough to really establish the addiction. Because it's repeat
Oh yeah.
use. You're training the reward center cells to explode with cravings
Mhm.
when you use the product. But you've got to get that lesson in repeatedly. Like if you just use sugar one time, yeah, no problem. But when you have something like the wacky warehouse, the Kool-Aid wacky warehouse, where the kids can, when they purchase, they cut out their purchase, proof of purchase, they collect them, and then they send them into the wacky warehouse to get free logoed merchandise. Well, that's step two. And then lots of different flavors. So the tobacco companies, there's this chilling quote from one of them. Tobacco companies are really flavor companies, because if there are lots of different flavors of something, you want to try all the flavors. So it's a seduction to get you to try it often enough to get the addiction established.
Like
So they
like
took the flavors like menthol cigarettes and cherry pipe tobacco. they defined themselves as a flavor, and then they brought that over to sugary drinks. When they got a hold of Hawaiian Punch, boom, lots of research. What kind of flavors do children like? They stopped marketing the product to adults. It's just they've just totally focused on children. It's so creepy. It's just hard to, but this is research coming out of University of California, San Francisco, where the documents that the tobacco companies were required to deposit as part of their settlements, those documents are all there. These brilliant researchers are going through those documents and creating the story of what happened from the tobacco company internal documents, from the internal analyses, from their press releases, and it is horrifying. So then now you buy now you're identifying, like the character for Hawaiian Punch was Punchy.
Oh yeah.
It was a violent character.
Yes.
You know, the joke was, would you like a Hawaiian Punch? Oh, sure, thank you. Punch. And then the child would hit the adult. And the character for Kool-Aid was Kool-Aid Man. Awesome dude, Kool-Aid Man, who would upset adults. That was what Kool-Aid Man did. He'd like burst through a wall and upset the adults. Children were taught that upsetting adults is a really cool thing to do. And of course, then again, lots and lots and lots of different flavors. And then when they, so they taught the children to identify themselves with Kool-Aid Man and Punchy. And then they would go get these, because Punchy did the same thing, had a warehouse, free stuff, free toys, free clothes, but all logoed. So then the child, it becomes a billboard for the other children in that child's social circle as well as themselves. They're playing with Punchy in their bedrooms. So this employs a well-known understanding of brain function, which is associative cueing. So the child associates the sugar rush with Punchy. All the child has to do is pick up Punchy, the Punchy toy, the Punchy telephone, the Kool-Aid board game, and there's a rush. There's cravings.
Not even have to eat it.
You don't have to eat it. You, in fact, as soon as you associate like the Kool-Aid Man logo or the Punchy logo or the Capri Sun logo or the Tang logo with that rush, the logo itself, the item, the clothes, the baseball cap, the basketball hoops, the Frisbee, it just goes on. That will trigger those trained reward centers now to flood the brain with cravings.
So then in relation to food addiction, so then, like, would you say that everybody can be, like, I think obviously there's some of us that need the food plan and need to treat it as food addiction, but do you think there's some people that are normal eaters, unlike us?
Not anymore.
Wow.
This is all going on in the 80s and 90s. So here we are 20 years later. In the rat studies, and for some of them, like when they're fed a sugar chocolate chow, one day they're hooked. Those rats are compulsively eating sugar. And for others, it takes a couple of days. The standard protocol to addict a rat before you sacrifice it and start examining your brain. And these are studies done on sugar, on fat, on grocery store, like they took Jif peanut butter and Chips Ahoy and a chocolate milk powder and mixed it up. The standard protocol now is the rat is on that for 6 weeks before the brain alterations have set in, and now you can examine the rat's brain. So it's if you're on this diet for a year, you are really severely altered. Yeah. Now here's the kicker. I just looked at this study last night. Americans are only eating 27% of their food in low processed. So what was the phrase that they used in the study? Minimally processed. So 27, 100 minus 27 is 73. 73% of the calories that Americans are consuming, I think the study was 2018, are processed. Now, these are highly addictive foods. So sugar, for example, a rat who's addicted, they get them addicted to heroin and cocaine and sugar and saccharin. This is research done at the University of Bordeaux. I've met the guy, Serge Ahmed. They will choose sugar. You give them all 4 levers, they will choose the sugar. You take the sugar away because, well, it has calories. Maybe they're choosing it for that reason. They'll choose the saccharin. These are highly addictive, brain-altering substances. So within a matter of months of getting this repeatedly, children are then really severely addicted. And this just went on. It went on for decades. It's been going on now. Let's just count it up. So Philip Morris bought Kraft. It was 3 years. Kraft, Nabisco, General Foods in the space of 1985 to 1988, and they immediately went into research for flavors. So 85, 95, 05, 15, that's 37 years. Now at this, and you can also see it in the progression. At that era in the 1980s, people were not eating 73% of their food in processed foods. So you see it increasing, which is one of the signs of addiction. You're having to use more of this stuff to get the same buzz, and of course you're not getting the same buzz.
So
it wears down.
Explain with that why diets don't work.
So this is exactly, I mean, like, suppose you have, and this is a really dramatic analogy, but it works. Heroin addicted people become emaciated.
Yeah.
Because their drug of choice doesn't have any calories in it. Beer addicted people get these big beer bellies because beer has calories in it. And processed food addicted people get the obesity. 80% of them, 20% of the people, you don't see it because the fat is accumulating closer to their organs. It's not under their skin. It's just the pattern. So we now have 83% of Americans are overweight or obese. 83. Yes. So the researchers are constantly pumping out, what are obese people experiencing? What is their experience of this? So now we have really good research showing that 6 out of the 11 signs of addiction are being experienced by these poor, obese, and overweight people. So they are unintended use and failure to cut back, and time spent and cravings, and use in spite of knowledge of consequences, and use for other reasons than hunger. Which, if you're using for reasons other than hunger, you're not eating, you're using. And it's withdrawal avoidance. So if you're eating because you're depressed, it's because the substances are numbing, and you're trying to avoid going through withdrawal from them and suffering the withdrawal pains. Or if you're eating because you're anxious, or if you're eating because you're angry, or you're eating because you're craving, or you're eating because you don't want to get a headache, or you're eating because you don't want to get a stomach ache, that's all withdrawal avoidance. You're so addicted that if you stop, you will be in some kind of pain. So that's eating for reasons other than hunger. So it takes 6 out of the 11 to reach the threshold for a severe addiction. So we have most of the country. The evidence shows and I have a study for each thing that I've just said. I have a study, I can say, and there's where that sign of addiction. That's how they know that. It's like, how do you know that people are eating in spite of knowledge of consequences? It's because one study showed that 44% of Americans gained weight during COVID, knowing that obesity was a sign, was a setup for dying. So they are threatened, they're faced with death. And 44% of Americans gained weight under that scenario.
Okay, you got to send me that one because at the beginning of, because the Lord gave me this whole book at the very beginning of COVID. Like he was like, the world is going to isolate with food, and you're not gonna. So, and I want to. I've been trying to find stats. So yeah, you'll have to send that to me because that is. As soon as it started, I was like, oh man, obesity numbers are going to get worse. Like it
And
is.
they did.
Mm.
So Meredith, this is just 1,000 times worse than anybody is imagining. But here's the good news. Let's do the good news.
Good news.
Yay. The good news. So all these brain alterations you have, when you have increased addiction, you also have increased stress because the brain doesn't want you walking around in a euphoric state because then the saber-tooth tiger will get you, or the neighboring tribe will come and they'll win the battle. Whether you're creationist or evolutionist, there are tribes, there's conflict, there's death, and the brain, however you think that brain got to the way it is, here's how it is. If you're walking around in a euphoric state, you could die. So the brain corrects by increasing stress. It sends signals to the adrenal gland to release adrenaline and keep you alert and keep you able to defend yourself. So you have hyperactivated reward centers, dopamine, serotonin, cannabinoid, opiate, and you have hyperactive stress. Often when we're raised by people who are using these substances, they're emotionally unstable because it destabilizes blood glucose and your adrenaline is up and down. And so you're much more likely to have experienced childhood trauma.
Yeah.
And then because these are fattening drugs, high fructose corn syrup turns to fat 2.5 times more readily than sugar. You also now you have this hyperactive food seeking due to dieting. Not enough food chronically wakes up the food seeking brain and it puts the body into a defense position by lowering energy expenditure rates. So now you can't lose weight anymore and you regain it like that. You go through not enough. Oh my gosh. I mean, I heard somebody, I don't know where I was, but I overheard somebody talking about starting a reduced calorie diet. And I said, don't. Almost 100% of people within 3 years of losing weight have regained some or all of it or more. Almost 100%. Now we've got a lot of now I think we have 4 different studies showing that over a pretty long span of period. But most people, the vast majority, maybe almost all, will have regained some or part of that weight within 3 years. So what does this all point to? So it points to, you say to that heroin addicted person who's like skinny, because the drug has taken over their food seeking and they're not seeking food. That is why they're not seeking food. It's why they're thin. It's how, it's part of developing heroin addiction. Would you ever say to that person, just gain some weight, you'll be fine? No, you wouldn't. You say, let's treat the addiction.
Yes.
So here's the good news. We now have a method to treat addictions, which is, it's almost painless and it's unbelievably effective. And it uses a part of the brain, which I discovered on January 1st, 2018, after the textbook was out. So it's not in the textbook. And here's the discovery. The drive to belong is the dominant force in the brain. The drive to belong is the dominant force in the brain. It will dominate an addiction. It will dominate anything. So it's run by a system called Neurons, just discovered in an Italian laboratory within the last 20 or 30 years. And it makes incredible sense because, again, whether you're evolution or creation, you have to belong to a tribe to survive. You have to belong to a tribe to survive. Whether you would think humans were, evolving over 7 million years, or whether you think they were created by God in the Bible, both of those frameworks, you have to be in a tribe to survive. So, the whole Maslow's hierarchy, like the base needs, sugar, water, food, shelter. You must, that's the primary drive in the human. No. The primary drive is to be in a tribe that can get you food, water, shelter. So the primary drive in the brain is to belong to a tribe. And how do you do that? How do you get a tribe to accept you and keep you and protect you? You conform.
Wow, this is like making so much sense for how our society is today, too. Wow.
The corporations exploit this mercilessly. That is kind of step 3 of that 4-step addiction process. It's now you belong to the wacky warehouse. You and Kool-Aid Man are friends. You and Punchy are friends because you've got your Punchy t-shirt on. Or you're playing with your Punchy toy phone. Wow. So bad, Meredith. Wow. It's so bad. Okay, so once you know that, then you know how to protect people from these corporate addiction processes. And the most incredibly great news is that you can keep your conform. This is a primitive, irrational, not able to evaluate drive. It's a part of the brain that we have to know is there and then protect it. So here's the super good news is you can keep your conformance drive safe over Zoom.
No joke. It's so true. Wow.
So this is January 1st, 2018. Now, at this point, I've spent 22 years trying to get people off of processed foods. But from 2014 to 2017, I wrote the textbook. I must have looked at 6,000 or 8,000 studies, and I pieced together the story. It's a severe addiction, and people are deeply traumatized, and they're isolating. And for a severe addiction, you don't do education classes, and you don't do once a week therapy, and no, you need to be immersed. And why is that? It's because you need to protect your conformance drive. All these other alterations, because all that stress and euphoria, the stress and highs, it's all been pulling the blood flow away from the frontal lobe since we were children. So that's why we have this epidemic of attention deficit, because those are things that are in the front frontal lobe, the front row. Attention, learning, decision-making, memory, impulse control. They're in that thin veneer, 2% of the brain that is the frontal lobe. And it's children, and we have horrible, they just make you want to throw up. We have pictures of it. We have pictures of what happens to the frontal lobe when it doesn't get blood supply in children. They shrink. That part of the brain shrinks. It's smaller. So obese children have smaller frontal lobes than normally weighted children with pictures, brain scans. You can see it. And they have these hyperactivated craving. I just saw one, and this research is pouring out. And don't you think? No, media is not picking it up. So Meredith, thank you for picking it up. Yeah,
absolutely. It's
You can. We now have an online community that's broadcasting live, somebody on a live screen, 1 hour a day phone call,
Good.
16 hours out of 24 around the world. So we'll go for a block of 4 or 5 hours and then a break of a couple of hours. But we're getting there. We're gonna be 24 before long. And that is one of the bases of recovery, is that you have a place where your conformance drive is seeing really healthy, clean eating, happy people just working on their skill building so that they can have the most incredibly wonderful life. Your brain will do that too.
Yeah,
And you don't have to fight it.
your brain heals itself when you're eating, when you're fueling it with what it needs, and you're giving it communication and connection with other people. And the addiction loves to get us alone and kill us. And it's everything you're saying is why 12 step and other support communities work.
Community, community, community. And this one is so severe and it's so misunderstood. It's been distorted. It's not a weight loss issue, just like heroin's not a weight gain issue. And it's not a childhood trauma issue. Childhood trauma makes it worse.
Yeah.
But this brain is hurting. Hyperactive cravings, hyperactive stress, hyperactive food seeking, no frontal lobe, or diminished frontal lobe. That is a brain which cannot handle the stress of therapy. That's a brain that you need to get sober first. You need to get the aggravating substances out of that person's body. And then that person will naturally be interested in healing the childhood stuff. But oh my gosh, it's just one of the worst mistakes that's being made out there. Therapists who are telling people who are in full grips of the addiction, just come and deal with your childhood. You just haven't dealt with your childhood issues. No, I have a chemical reaction going on in my body that must stop first. So it's the good news is that there's now a refuge, there's now a sanctuary on the earth that you can get to from anywhere, any connection. So far, it's all in English. We're working on the Spanish piece. But we do have somebody who's doing this in Portuguese. One of our Brazilian members she's got a Portuguese speaking community.
Wow.
So now you don't have to suffer anymore. And we've got it very affordably priced. It's better than residential treatment because you go away to residential treatment and then you come home. Well, home is where you binged, and home then triggers you to start binging again. Good. And you're around people who are eating processed food. So your conformance drive said, well, that was the recovery center and now we're home. So whoosh, let's conform to these people, and they're back in it.
Yeah, you have to change your environment. And I mean, I went to treatment for 6 weeks, but I got out of there and I had to clear out my entire kitchen, and I had to have somebody come in and do it with me. And change your people, your places. You got to change everything. And it's not an easy process.
Now it is, Meredith. Yeah. Now it is.
Well, that's good to hear.
The brain is so susceptible that all you have to do is listen to this programming in the background while you go about your business, and your brain will start picking it up. I'll tell you a good story about it.
Yeah.
We have a member who came in. She just spent $4,000 on a one-on-one program where she was abused. The practitioner had not a clue what they were doing, and so they blamed her. They yelled at her. They shamed her. And so she just started lying. She got through the end of the program by lying about what she was doing. So she came in to the ARC, and day one, she does well during the day, and she gets the evening, and there's the ooey gooey thing out in her kitchen for her family. And she says, well, I'm in a program that understands lapsing, which is true. Lapsing is something that gets better slowly over time. So I'm going to eat that. Same thing happens on Tuesday. Wednesday, she's out in the kitchen, end of the day. looking at the stuff, and she's saying, I could eat that. I won't get in trouble. Nobody will blame or shame me, but I don't want to.
Yep.
That is the shift in conformance drive. That conformance drive is, we've seen these people for 3 days now. They don't eat this stuff. Don't eat that stuff.
It's
And
like,
it's not white knuckling, and it's not holding on for dear life. It's, I don't want that. It's shockingly easy. And when something is that easy and it's been impossible for decades, it actually gets to be fun. It actually gets to be fun.
Must be awesome to watch it. And
it is. It's just, it seems miraculous, but it's just protecting the brain from conforming to what the advertisers want you to do and the people around you want you to do.
yeah, I like what you were saying, because I always think of it like the physiology of the brain is, like the serotonin and all that stuff, but I've never thought about that you have, and I know you have to treat the brain, but it's like first, but I never thought about your brain is hurting. It's like the physical brain is hurting. And I don't think anyone thinks of it like that,
You know who gave that to me was Bitten Janssen.
Really?
We were on a panel, a Nutrition Network panel, and she described it and I said, oh my gosh, Bitten, you are so right.
Yep.
I try to tell people why they had to get the substances out before they started therapy. And she just nailed it. That's Bitten stuff.
What do you think about people that have had surgery?
I think someday we will look back on that as the most barbaric,
Yep.
barbaric and bariatric. Barbaric, bariatric. It's, I have this really wonderful new friend. They are a medical weight loss doctor, and they work in a clinic with bariatric surgeons. And I keep trying to explain to her, and she keeps trying to explain to them. It's like they want to do things like, well, how big should we make the pouch? Should we make it smaller? Those are the questions that these are not monster people. I just think they've been trained in a just a monstrous thing. So they will say to her, what do you think? Should we make the pouch bigger for this person? We can go in and resection and blah, blah, blah. Or should we make the pouch smaller? It doesn't seem to be working. I finally figured out a way to explain to them. So if you think about the process by which food is digested, and this is going to be horrible, but I'm gonna try it out. I'm gonna try it out on you, Meredith. Listeners, Meredith's faithful. I apologize in advance. This is really gross. Just think about, how does food get digested? First, it comes in the mouth, it goes down the esophagus, and then it reaches this little missing stomach, right? So that's the idea, is that you make the digestive tract smaller. So one thing I've thought about for years is, well, why didn't they just make the trachea smaller for smokers? But I thought of this vision. I said, I've got to figure out a way to describe why this is so horrible. Well, what about if you just made the mouth smaller? What about if you just sold in the corner and sold in the corner, and then you want to be able to eat so much? That's what they're doing. All right, was that too gross?
Not gross at all. It's a good visual of.
Okay.
We need.
I don't know how to explain these things.
No, but we need the graphic, because people don't understand. Sometimes people just kind of get lost in the science, but that to me is really good. That's good info.
All right.
And it makes me think about people, because I've seen people in my other 12-step recovery where a lot of people have had the surgery and then become alcoholic.
The addiction transfer.
Yep.
Meredith, I'm writing a whole paper now about
Good.
Keto.
Oh, thank you. I need it.
So here's what happens in keto. I'm trying, of course, to get one of my really beloved communities these days is Low Carb USA. They always get me to speak, and I always go, and they're listening, and over, I think I've been speaking there for 2.5 years now. They're getting it. They're starting to talk about it. The last time I went, 5 different speakers mentioned food addiction. Like, yes. So but they're having a hard time understanding how to bring it into their practice. So this is what happens. And now I'm going to give credit to Rob Lustig. Rob Lustig lined this out, and then I went and filled it out. He gave me the outline, and now I've written a paper, which I have to get back to, on how keto makes processed food addiction so much worse. And here's how it works. You fail to identify at the beginning, you fail to identify that the person is food addicted, which we now know is probably 85% of the country. You miss it. You don't diagnose it. You don't get it. You don't identify it. And so you say to the person, oh, we're going to put you on a ketogenic food plan. We're going to take out the carbs and we're going to put in fat. Yeah. Well, okay, so step 1 is you miss the addiction. Step 2 is you now set this person up for a fat addiction. And do you think there is such a thing? Well, those researchers are out there looking at every angle. And yes, there is excellent evidence. So the consumption, you could miss it because, like in sugar, it just goes straight up. That rat just eats more and more sugar, and 6 weeks later, you can just dissect the brain and see it all there. But fat is the curve is quite flat in terms of the amount that the rat is eating. But if you look at the calories, then you see the increase. So there's this brilliant study. There's a lab in, it's at University of Boston. It's headed by a man named Pedro Cottone, C-O-T-T-O-N-E, I think you would pronounce it. And he just turns this stuff out. He's the one who did the study showing that the first part of the brain to activate is that stress pathway when you're building up an addiction. And he did that in a rat study. And now his lab has come out with, here's sugar addiction, here's fat addiction. So we do have really good evidence for addiction to fat. So now the person is eating a lot of fat, and their fat addiction is revving up, because that's how you train. And it's a different system. It's the endocannabinoid system, the same system that marijuana lights up. It's the cannabinoid, cannabis. It's named after cannabis, but fats will light that system up. So now you have intensified fat addiction. You have now a cannabinoid system that might have been hyperactivated at the beginning of the process, but now it's really whacked out. It's really hyperactivated. But here's the hard thing to think about. Sugar cravings, unless you're treating the addiction, sugar cravings incubate. They're getting worse. You're not eating the sugar, but then again, you're not in addiction recovery, so you're still being cued. Other people around you are eating it. You're eating those freaking keto treats. You're getting, the lie that I forget, not erythromycin, that's an antibiotic, but whatever it is, that sweetener that keto think, oh, that's safe. No. So boom, eventually the sugar addiction re-erupts. I'll just have one bite, or you end up eating the whole bag of keto treats that are artificially sweetened. Now you have extra virulent, extra powerful sugar addiction. Now you'll be trying to do something like eating good Monday through Thursday and then binging on keto treats over the weekend. Or as I'm not going to say who it is, but a really big leader in the keto community. She was and inviting me, trying to set up, getting me to come to speak to an event. I said, Joan, you've got to come. People are binging one week and doing keto the other week. Like this is normal, common in the keto community. So, okay, well, I'll come. So now you have the absolute worst diet on the planet, which you have a virulent fat addiction and virulent sugar addiction combined. And when you combine sugar and fat, it is exponentially worse than either one alone. And now the person is destroying their cells. That's another thing. It's Rob Lustig's metabolical book where he lays out the 8 ways that processed foods harm cells. And so it's why so many, our list of diseases that go away when you get off of processed foods and you get into a protective community and you stop the stress. You get the toxic relationships and the toxic media and the sleep patterns back together and some movement going. 144 diseases just go away.
Wow. I know people always say, I think I lost like 50 in the last 2 years, and people say, what'd you do? I'm like, sugar, flour, and people. Sugar, flour, people. And, they don't oh, yeah, it seems that simple. I'm like, but people don't realize how much stuff is processed. And my stepkids always joke because when they were growing up, I'd be like, it's processed. But now they understand, like, oh, this tastes really processed. Yeah, because it's fake.
Yeah, I just was at I was just at the dentist this morning, and really nice personnel there. We got to talking about food, of course, because she was telling me the farms around Seattle where she buys food. Farms around Seattle, tell me. She said, yeah, I eat all farm food, and then I eat this really great bread. And she said, I know it's not processed because it comes from this really fancy bakery. I let it go.
Yeah.
But as I was walking out, she said, I'm so glad to have connected with you, and your field is so fascinating. And I said, could I just share one little thing with you? Could you try it? Just try this, like 10 days, get off the bread entirely, and then sit down and eat only bread, like a lot of it. And you will see what it's doing to you.
Wow, I never heard about that. That's
it's one way to help children.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, you're going to eat my food Monday, Sunday through Saturday. Saturday morning, you can have whatever you want. So they eat clean, their gut repopulates, all the bad stuff dies off that breaks down processed foods. Saturday morning, whatever you want. They eat, they binge, and they get sick for the rest of the weekend. Maybe one more Saturday they'll ask for it, and then they won't ask for it anymore.
Crazy.
You're just crazy. But you know what? Those researchers, they're showing us exactly what's going on, and they're showing us the way out. And then we're just using technology to put all the pieces together. So as long as you have the ability to listen to positive recovery, science-based things that actually work because they're grounded in, this is the actual problem and this is actually going to make the pain stop. It's not hard anymore.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to have to, when I start getting the book out, I need to get your site, people connected to your site. So why don't you tell me again what that is and what people can find there?
Okay, so foodaddictionreset.com is the community website.
Okay.
You can join the community there. I'm going to tell you, I know this is going to be shocking. It's $59 a month. Because I know people need to be there for a long time. And we're training people to be ARC managers. So if you have been in that place where you've wanted to help the next person and you've been trying, like I tried for 22 years before I finally just January 1st, 2018, I started helping. I'll give you a handout. Just eat these, don't eat. That was like January 1996, 22 years, a PhD. It wasn't until I wrote the textbook that I understood. And even then, it was Zoom. It was just the luck of Zoom coming on the market. But now we know.
Yeah.
Now we know. Now we know how to do it. We use this new technology
Well,
so that we're surrounding people with positive, protective messaging truth.
Yep.
This is killing you, as opposed to the industry messages. This will make you happy and da 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 da. You know, it's just like. So it's just that protective bubble. It's a virtual bubble of protection. And you can access it from anywhere in the world where you can get an internet connection 24 hours a day. So we are around the world now.
Wow.
So that's one thing. And then we have a lot of information at processedfoodaddiction.com.
Okay.
Sign up there for the free information and you'll get on our email list. We give free public workshops once a month on really timely topics. And yeah.
That's awesome.
The Processed Food Addiction is like the information site. We really want to move into workplace consulting. I have an MBA from Stanford. What I really want to do is create these protective communities in workplaces.
Great idea.
Yes, and get the employers, really it's the investors. The investors are the ones who ultimately pay for the processed foods that the employer is putting around their employees.
Well,
so the investor pays for the foods and then the investor pays for the healthcare.
I was just at my dermatologist today and I was talking with the ladies about it, and you know, it's like, how many baked goods do they have around every day? How many, you know, it's not an easy environment because it's like the constant numbing that's available, you know?
And when something is available, it is involuntarily tickling those reward centers into releasing cravings. Availability alone. So you go in the morning and you're fine and you wouldn't eat that crap, not interested. But the reward centers are being stimulated to release cravings. And by 10:30, you're in there. I hate myself for eating this. You know, it's just, we call it the zombie walk. Your frontal lobe is screaming, no, no, no. But when you think, and this is true, the brain is in departments. So the frontal lobe department is screaming no and no and no, but the addicted department is saying, we're getting it. And the addicted department is stronger than this little tiny frontal lobe. And plus, conformance drive, everybody else has been going in and out of that break room over to the vending machines. You can hear the crackling of the cellophane and the popping of the cans, and your conformance drive is in a dangerous place. It's trying to grab on to the people around you. That is not your fault.
No.
If you've ever gone to the vending machine or into the break room screaming no, 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 and then pick up the stuff anyway, that is not your fault. You didn't ask for that, and a little mindfulness is not going to stop that. You need to reprogram literally 100 billion brain cells.
Yeah, and stop blaming your willpower, because
it's not an issue of willpower. It's not self-sabotage. It's not you hate yourself. It's not your childhood issues. You have a vicious, severe. This is one that starts, you know, I once said to Rob Listic, it starts at conception. He said, no, starts at, no, I said it starts at birth. He says, no, it starts at conception. He's right. Because if the parents are eating processed foods, the first DNA is going to replicate it with the addictive pattern in the DNA. So we never had a chance, but now we do. Now with the ARC, you do have a chance. It's a good chance.
Good. Do you have any young people in it, or are they like kind of parents? Oh, you do? Okay.
We have no children.
Yeah.
Like, no. Ask a child to fight an addiction like this. Are you kidding? Because the parents have to create a clean environment at home. Keep that child's gut cleared out. Because then when the child goes to school and there are 84 different temptations and the child eats one, it will make them sick. And all you have to do is say, oh, it's that made you sick and I'm so sorry. And you say that enough times, and then the child's own pain aversion, which is a very powerful system in the body, the child's own pain aversion instincts, they'll start to say no, thank you. And then mom or dad, parents have to send real food so that the child's never in a position of having to choose between going hungry or eating bad food. You've got to have clean food on that child all the time. Like my kids would just leave the house with this huge bag of 2 snacks, a big breakfast, a big lunch, and then I would pick them up. Sometimes I would have dinner in the car so that they didn't have to drive home without eating again. Yeah, so there are ways to protect children without fighting or controlling.
Wow, I feel like we're going to need to have a whole workshop on that children aspect because I mean, I was that kid who had it. Yeah, my parents got divorced, but that food was my best friend. And my parents were like, or my dad mainly was like, diet, 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 diet. And I remember when I was in treatment, he apologized to me. He's like, I'm so sorry that I always put you on diets because it was never the solution. And that's, I think, some of these parents, they have their own issues with the food and then they put it on the kids, and the kid is, and then they're judging the kid and shaming the kid, and, just.
And then the food industries are via Nickelodeon, this again back into the 1990s. Nickelodeon reached 65 million households with over 500 commercials for these addictive foods in one Saturday morning.
Wow.
There's a reason why this country is so sick.
Yeah.
We lose 1.5 million Americans every year to diet-related diseases. It's taken COVID, what am I going to say, 3.5 years to kill 1 million Americans? In that time frame, 3 times 1.5 million, 4.5 million Americans died of diet-related diseases.
But people never say it as diet-related diseases. People, it's just like,
oh, she died of cancer. Oh, she died of heart disease. Oh, it was complications of diabetes. Like, that's normal and expected. It's very, very sad. But like, it's just something that you have to get used to.
it's that whole, well, it runs in my family. No, there's a saying, it runs out on you. You can change it, and your diet is a big part of it. And I think that's what people just think. Well, my mom had it, so I'm going to have it.
This is not genetic.
Mm-mm.
It's not genetic.
Wow. Well, I knew this was going to be full of good meat.
Meredith, thank you so much. I always love whatever I'm working on. I mean, there's just taking a new look. Those researchers at University of California, San Francisco, they've done an absolutely incredible job of going through hundreds of thousands of documents to tell the story of how tobacco, it's much, much worse. Like,
is there a book or anything?
It's a paper. It's a paper. It was published prestigiously, I think, in the British. It was published in a British journal, very prestigiously. But just if you send me an email and ask me for the link, I'll send it to you.
Okay, I got a couple other ones to ask you about too. So
yeah,
you have so many good ones. And do you post these on your Facebook page? Because I know you do some.
You know what I do on the big public Facebook page, we're just awareness.
Yeah.
Because what we're not going to do out there is tips, because that sets people up for failure. This is it's as slow as you go, as fast as you go. We say go as fast as you want to feel satisfied with your progress, and go as slow as you want to feel satisfied with your progress. You're in charge of your pacing. And but you can heal inside the arc. But if I say, if I go out into the big public group and say, oh, get the processed foods out of your house, they get the processed foods out of the house and then they're binging. So that doesn't help my credibility, and it doesn't help them feel powerful.
Mm-hmm.
You can get the foods out of your house and it will take root and help you if all the other cueing is being taken care of. And if you're learning how to manage toxic relationships and get enough sleep, sleep is as big as food. So the big, actually, that would be another place for your people to go. Food addiction education. You know you're in the right place because the profile picture is brain scans showing cocaine is less destructive than sugar. I can't make this, I'm not making this stuff up. It's one thing that my doctoral committee taught me. They say there are two things that you can say, Joan. You can say this is the research, here's the evidence, or you can give your personal opinion, which nobody cares about. So just stick to the research.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you've got the research. You've got lots of info. So I really appreciate it.
I lost my computer in the middle of writing the textbook. I'm serious. I was able to reconstruct a lot, but even with that loss of my laptop, today I have like 6,400 studies in my database. Wow. All illustrating some aspect of the repercussions of this horrible thing that we're living through. I'm so glad you got free, Meredith. You got free. You got free. You know, this is getting free. It is like getting out of prison.
It is. It's like you said, you get to live your life. You get to be who you're supposed to be, not be blocked by. And I, writing this book, I say to people, this book isn't about, hey, weight and food and let me obsess about it. It's focus on who you're supposed to be and give this to God so you can get healthy. Stop obsessing.
It's in your head. The prison is in your mind. And then it so weakens your physical body that then the prison is, you're in a prison because you're just too sick and your joints hurt too badly and you don't want people to see your body shape and you're too tired and craving and depressed anyway. And then your world just keeps becoming smaller and smaller, and then you're spending it whole days doing video games and Facebook. Facebook addiction there's a lot of research on Facebook addiction.
Oh, I believe it. Do people treat that in treatment centers, Facebook addiction?
In China, there are quite draconian
Wow.
Facebook addiction treatment centers.
Wow.
Where they just abuse the children all over again.
Ugh.
Yeah. People need to know. You only get one life. This is the saddest thing about addicting children, which is, so you're forcing them by training those reward centers, you're forcing them to think about sugary products, whether it's a video game equipment or a sugary drink. Children should be thinking about other things.
Yes.
And so you take away their ability to have a childhood, and then you take away their ability to have a great adulthood. Life is like the pleasure of helping other people and being aware of your own skills and your own powers and really enjoying yourself, really enjoying being who you are and being proud of yourself.
Yep.
And doing good works. That's life. And the addiction is like, oh no, let's go get this. Oh no, I know it's the middle of the night, but I have enough gas in the car. I could go here, and stopping at 4 places before I get home and then turning on the television. That's what we're missing, is the appreciation of how wonderful we are.
Amen to that. That's a great way to end. All right, well, I appreciate it so much, Joan.
Thank you for having me there, and I'm so glad to be connecting with you again.
Me too.